What's up, Raptors fans? Welcome to the Warrant Report. So for today's video, I will be taking a look at 5 players the Raptors can target in the upcoming NBA draft. So we know the Raptors have been struggling the entire season, and we also have one of the toughest schedules to finish off the season, and we might as well continue to tank and land a high draft pick. So I do want to mention that these 5 players I've chosen are not players that I've necessarily chosen based on what the Raptors need, but just the best player available. So you're not going to be seeing a lot of centers, and unfortunately, with this draft in the top 10, there's not really a lot of centers we can target outside of maybe Evan Mobley. So I do want to show you this next screen before I start talking about these players. So I want to quickly bring up this screen here. As you see, the Raptors have a slim chance of landing in the top 4 in the NBA draft as it currently stands. We did beat, unfortunately, the Cleveland Cavaliers, so we're not really good at tanking, but that's okay. You never know where we end up. But you look at the percentages there, we're really likely to land in the 8th and 9th spots. So for this video, I won't be focusing on guys like Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Jalen Green, Suggs, or Jonathan Kuminga. I do want to look at some realistic options for the Raptors at the 8th, 9th spots. So before I get into the details of this video, I need you guys to do me a favor. Please give this video a thumbs up. When you do that, it helps reach a larger YouTube audience. And if you could hit that subscribe button as well, it really helps this channel grow. You get a lot of Raptors content on here, in-depth analysis, and great videos you won't see anywhere else. So let's jump right into it. So my first player I've chosen is Scottie Barnes. So Scottie Barnes has played for the Florida State. He's listed as a small forward, power forward, and he's only 19 years old. He's 6'9", 227 pounds, and he has a really nice wingspan of 7'2". And as I want to mention, though he's listed as a small forward, power forward, he actually played point guard at Florida State, which is what brings us to our next slide here. So when you look at his stats here, they're not really standing out. You'd be a little surprised as to why we would take someone in the top 10 when he's only averaging 10 points, but I'll leave these numbers up for you guys to take a look at. I'll be talking about some of his strengths and weaknesses. So Scottie Barnes, as I mentioned, he did play the point guard position, and what was really impressive about him was he's a great passer. So he's listed as 6'9", but he's really good at passing. He's great in the transition game and finding his teammates. He's a solid passer. He's also a really good defender. He's a switchable defender. So as we know, the Raptors' style of play, they usually like to just switch on whichever player they're defending. I think that would really help the Raptors. Obviously, we do have Pascal and Chris Boucher at that power forward position, as I mentioned, but it wouldn't hurt to draft someone like him. He actually reminds me a lot of Pascal Siakam in the way, because Scottie Barnes, one of his weaknesses is he can't shoot at all. He really struggles to shoot from anywhere, from the three-point line, from the mid-range game. Even when he goes in the post, he kind of tries to throw up these funny hook shots, and he misses a lot of them. That's why you see his points per game are really low there, only 10.3. So in a sense like that, he really reminds me of Pascal Siakam because he can pass the ball. Obviously, Pascal Siakam has come a long ways in terms of scoring and developing his game there, but Scottie Barnes cannot shoot the ball to save his life. He's not a good three-point shooter, as you see there. Now, he's really good at attacking the rim, which is nice. So it would be a really nice addition to have off of our bench. Have him come in, attack the rim, and he can distribute the ball as well. So he can handle the ball like a point guard. He can distribute it, and we have a lot of three-point shooters, so I think he'd fit in very nice with the Raptors. As I said, some of his weaknesses are he can't shoot. He does not have any sort of shot going for him. His offense needs a lot of work, but he does turn the ball over sometimes a lot as well. He has a habit of that. So that's where his game kind of reminds me of Pascal Siakam because of his length. He's a good defender. He can pass the ball as well. And as I mentioned, Pascal wasn't really known for any of those when he came into the league, but he was a high energy guy. And Scottie Barnes is one of those players I feel like that can come in and develop his offensive game under the Raptors system. He has a lot of potential. He's a really intriguing player because of his size and his ability to handle the ball. So I feel like he'd be a really nice player on the Raptors. Again, as I mentioned, if we can develop Pascal's game, if people recall and believe in his first or second season, Pascal was shooting somewhere around that 27 mark, and then the next season in our championship run, his 3-point percentage went way up. So we can probably develop Scottie Barnes in that sense as well. develop his offensive game, but he's a solid defender. He can switch on guards. He can even guard point guards at that 3 point line, which is amazing. And even when they get past him, he has that length to kind of disrupt their shot and also get blocks in as well. So this is the first player I have on my list. The next player I want to take a look at is James Bouknight. So James Bouknight, as you see there, he played for Connecticut and he's listed as a guard and he's 6'5", which is good height, and he's 190 pounds, but it's a little underweight, but that's to be expected of a 20-year-old. And he has a nice wingspan of 6'8" And you know what? Let's take a look at the next screen here, and you see his statistics there. Now he's put up some really impressive numbers. You see his points here, and I'm going to leave these numbers up and talk about some of his potential. So I really believe James Bouknight has all-star potential, if not even more. I think he can take it to the next level. I personally am really high on him. So when I was doing his scouting report, his offense seemed absolutely unreal. He could score in multiple ways. He can shoot that three-point ball. As you see there, he's struggling a little bit, but he's shown potential to shoot it. He also is able to create his own shot, which is a bonus. As we know, the Raptors kind of struggle in the half-court offense to kind of get someone to create their shot. Teams kind of double down on Pascal Siakam, so I feel like he could come off the bench and we can develop him down the years. James Bouknight would be a really nice player. He can score in multiple ways. He can attack the rim. He has a nice jump shot. He also has a nice hesitation move. He kind of does against the defenders, where he kind of hesitates and blows by them to attack the rim. He's also great at when he does not have the ball. So when he's not dribbling the ball and he's playing off ball, he does a great job of cutting to the basket, and he's also very athletic. So he can throw down those alley hoops. He can really dunk the ball as well. So as you saw there, he's got good size. He's 6'5". Obviously, his strength needs a lot of work. So one of his weakness with James Bouknight is that he unfortunately sometimes when he's driving the ball, he has tunnel vision. So he sometimes is focused so much on getting to the basket, he does not see his teammates open at times, and that's one of his weaknesses with James Bouknight. And sort of rather than looking for his teammate, he sometimes looks to get his own shot. Now he's a good defender. He's got obviously good size, as I mentioned, but and he's got good hands as well on defense. But sometimes on defense, he does try to gamble a little bit to get those steals and blocks, and he does need to improve on that a little bit. Another area of work where James Bouknight we needs to improve on is his shot selection. He sometimes forces his shot too much. And also, when he does attack the basket, one thing about James Bouknight is he kind of shies away from contact. So when he sees there's a player that he kind of tries to go around them rather than go into the body. Now, as I mentioned, he's a little bit underweight, so that could be one of the reasons. He does obviously need to increase his strength to get at the NBA level as you face bigger players. But James Bouknight just has some really amazing tools. So let's talk about some of his strengths as well. So he's as I mentioned, he's a really strong, he's a really athletic player, sorry. And he gets those alley hoops. He really dunks the ball as well, which is good because he's also shown potential of being a good passer who has good court vision. So although he has tunnel vision when he's driving to the basket, overall he's good at finding his teammates. He's definitely shown the potential. Obviously that's an area of where he needs to work on, but he is a young player. He's shown a lot of potential in that aspect. As I mentioned, I really see star potential in him. You go take a look at some of his highlights, and he is just dribbling the ball. He hesitates. He has multiple ways in which he can score the basket, which would be great for the Raptors because we can use him off that bench. He can play the shooting guard small forward position. He might be a little bit underweight to play that small forward position as of now, but we can develop him. He's still very young and he can provide some much needed scoring off the bench, and he can create his shot as well. So having him and Malachi Flynn off the bench would be a really nice asset. And you know what? It would be a really nice fit, I feel like, with the Raptors. Now obviously there's a few things he needs to work on as well. But overall, I think he would fit the Raptor system really well. He does have good hands, so on defense, he's really good at disrupting his defender when he's guarding them. So that's another area of strength he has. So I feel like he would be another solid pick the Raptors could take at the 8th, 9th spot. So the next player I want to take a look at is Kai Jones. So Kai Jones is the next player on our list, and he played for Texas. And although he's listed as the forward, he played the power forward position. He can also play the center position based off of his height. He's 6'11", 218 pounds. Unfortunately, I was not able to find a wingspan for him, and he's 20 years old. So Kai Jones, as you'll see on the next screen here, his rebounding isn't that great, but that's also because he kind of played at that power forward position. So I'm going to talk about some of his strengths and weaknesses. So Kai Jones, I think the Raptors could draft him and play him at that center position. So Kai Jones, let's start off with some of his weaknesses right off the bat. He does not have a post game, but to me, honestly, that does not matter because the NBA has changed a lot and most big men nowadays don't live in the post except for maybe Joel Embiid and a few others, but he does not have a post game. Another area of work for him is he really lacks confidence when he's shooting the three-point ball now. Although, as you see on the screen there, he shoots the three-point ball really well for a big man. He does really shy away from it at times. When you look at his highlights, he pump fakes. Even when he's open, he'll kind of pump fake, try to dribble past the player when he's not able to, and then he kind of passes it off. So that's one area of work he really needs to improve on is just kind of being confident in that shot. Another area he can improve on is his turning over the ball. So he tends to sometimes pass the ball too much or tries to do too much and he ends up turning the ball over. But that's an issue with a lot of big men where you see them trying to force the game and they end up turning the ball over a little bit too much. That's somewhere he would need to improve on. Another thing is he obviously clearly needs to put on some weight. So he's listed at 6'11 and 218 pounds. He would obviously need to put some weight on to play at the power forward or center position. He needs to get a little bit stronger in that sense. So let's talk about some of his strengths now that we've gotten the weaknesses out of the way. Obviously, Kai Jones is a player we've been hearing a lot of in mock drafts, and just a lot of Raptors fans online have been saying, yeah, I really like Kai Jones, and I'll explain why in just a second. So Kai Jones is great in pick and roll. And who do we have on the Raptors bench that's great in pick and rolls? Malachi Flynn. Malachi Flynn was projected to be one of the best point guards, I believe, in his draft in pick and roll. So imagine bringing Kai Jones in off the bench to play with Malachi Flynn. That would be amazing to have. He's great in pick and roll. He's also very athletic and attacks the rim off the dribble, which is great. So you can give him the ball a little bit past that free throw line. He can dribble and attack the rim, which is nice. So he doesn't he can dribble the ball a little bit. Another thing is he's also can guard multiple players. So when you check out his highlights, you'll see he's guarding sometimes even point guards at that three-point line. And he's really good at recovering even when they blow past him because he's an explosive shot blocker. So another thing, obviously his stats don't show it there. He's barely averaging a block a game, but when he does get blown by defenders, he can guard shooting guards, small forwards, point guards. He really has the length and the wingspan. Well, actually, his wingspan's not listed, but you can tell he's a very lengthy guy, and he can really get up there for those blocks. He kind of protects the rim. Obviously, that's an area he would need to work on his shot blocking, but he's shown a lot of potential to be a good shot blocker in the NBA. It's now the thing with Kai Jones is if the Raptors do draft him, he is a project, but he does have a lot of potential. So as we know, anytime the Raptors hear that word potential, and Raptors are a match made in heaven because they are really good at developing players with potential. So obviously he's got a long ways to go when he becomes a key contributor to the Raptors, but he does have a really high ceiling, and the Raptors I feel like could develop him really well. We do have our Raptors 905, and we are also great at developing players. So I feel like he would be a solid pick for the Raptors. So the next player I want to take a look at is Moses Moody. So Moses Moody, as you see there, he played with Arkansas. He's playing at that guard position, and he's only 18 years old, which is great because, well, the Raptors would have a lot of time to develop him. He's a very young player. He's also 6'6", which is good. He gives us some size as well. Now, obviously, he's a little bit underweight for a 6'6" player. He's 205 pounds, but he does have a nice wingspan of 7 feet. Now, talking about some of his statistics here, one of his area of strength with Moses Moody is he's a great three-point shooter. Now, I'm not comparing him to Klay Thompson, but he's actually very much like him in the sense that he'll take one or two dribbles and shoot that three-point ball. And he's also really good at attacking the rim. So what he usually does is once he gets the ball, he takes one or two dribbles, attacks the basket. He's also really good at getting through the free throw line, and he's also a good free throw shooter as well, which is great because As we know, the Raptors obviously would love to have a three-point shooter, but also someone who just really attacks the basket. And he can not only get to the basket and draw those fouls, but he's also a good free throw shooter, so which is good as well. One area he does need to work on is his dribbling, though, as I mentioned, he kind of hesitates. He always just takes one or two dribbles. He won't dribble the ball too much. That's not really his area of game. That's not one of his strengths. So what he usually does is quickly dribbles the ball, either takes a three-point shot or attacks the basket. Another area he would really needs to work on is his mid-range game. So most of his offense comes from either shooting the three-point ball or attacking the rim. He doesn't have a mid-range game. He doesn't take a lot of those shots. That's not really his style of play. Another area he would definitely need to obviously get, as I mentioned earlier, get a little bit stronger, put on a little bit more size, get some weight in there, and he although he's really good at drawing fouls, he's again, maybe it's one of those things. He's still a really young player. He does kind of shy away from contact as well. So especially when he's attacking the basket, he kind of shies away from that. He obviously is good at drawing some fouls, but he does not finish in those and one when he does draw those fouls, he doesn't finish some of those baskets because obviously his physical strength isn't there yet. So that's an area of where Moses Moody I feel like could definitely work on. Let's talk about some of his strengths though. As I mentioned, he's a good three-point shooter. He's great at getting through the free throw line. Another area is he's a good rebounder, as you see there. Moses Moody has really high IQ on defense as well. So you'll notice when you look at some of his videos and his clips, Moses Moody does a great job of rotating on defense. He stays with his man, and when he gets switched on, he does a great job of rotating on defense. Another area of Moses Moody, another strength is his rebounding ability, but also how he positions himself for those rebounds. He's a great at not only boxing out, but he's great at getting in position for those rebounds. I believe he averaged something like 2 offensive rebounds or something crazy like that, which is amazing because he really gets in there with those big men and he gets those offensive rebounds, which is great to see. Now, Moses Moody, I personally believe, would be one of those players that can come in and contribute to the Raptors right away. Out of all these 5 players I've chosen, I really believe he's one of those players that can come in and really help the Raptors, especially with that three-point shot and rebounding as well. That's his area of strength. So the next player I will be taking a look at is KEON Johnson. So KEON Johnson, I really like KEON Johnson for one reason and one reason only, and I'll explain that in a sec here. But as you see, KEON Johnson played with Tennessee. He was at the guard position, and he's 19 years old, and he's got good size as well, 6'5". Now again, his weight obviously needs to add in a lot more weight. He's only 186 pounds, which is really small for someone who's 6'5". He's also got a decent wingspan of 6'8". So when you look at his statistics here, Keon Johnson, as you see in the picture there, that's one of the reasons I like him. He might just be the most explosive dunker in this draft. So if you go look at his highlights, he has some amazing dunks there. He really gets up there for dunks. His dunks are so amazing and his athleticism is so great that they're already comparing him to Zach LaVine. A lot of articles online are actually talking about him already being in the NBA dunk contest next season. That's how explosive he is as an athlete. That's his main strength as a player. Now you look at his statistics, they're not eye popping, but he is one of the most explosive dunkers in this draft. I can say that just looking at his highlights. He's also a really good defensive player as well. So the good thing about Keon Johnson here is he can lock down the opposing team's best scorers as well. So not only does he attack the basket and really soar in for those crazy dunks, he also does a solid job on defense as well. And we know the Raptors' identity is defense, so he brings in good size, he can play some defense, and he really attacks the basket, which would be great. I feel like we need one of these players that just brings some electrifying energy with those massive dunks. We haven't had one of these guys in a while, so he would be a nice pickup. Obviously, he does have a lot of things he needs to work on, so the thing with Keon Johnson is he does not shoot the three-point ball well at all, as you see there. He does need to work on that. Just overall, he's not really known for his shooting. He does need time to work on that. So another area he definitely needs to improve on is his passing. His offensive game overall is just very raw and it still needs a lot of work. But as I said, a lot of these guys we're taking a look at, they're very young players, so we have time to develop them. Another thing is you can't really teach defense. If a player is already like Keon here, he has good defense. That's an absolute bonus because we saw that with OG and Anobi as well. You have good defense, you can develop the offense later. So I feel like he would be a great player on the Raptors for that reason. So, um, talking about his offense, as I mentioned earlier, his explosiveness is so crazy. They're already comparing him to Zach LaVine, and I believe height and wingspan as well is very similar to Zach LaVine. And even his defense is so good. They're already talking about when they talk about player comparisons, they're actually comparing him to Jaylen Brown when they talk about his defense. So his offense, explosiveness wise, anyways, he's been compared to Zach LaVine, and his defense, he's been compared to Jaylen Brown, which is great to have in a player like Keon Johnson would be nice. But um, he's a really interesting player. Again, he can really soar in for those dunks and play some good defense. His offense obviously does need a lot of work, and he's still very young, so we do have time to develop him. He would be a nice piece off the bench. I definitely wouldn't mind having Keon Johnson though. But I do want to hear your thoughts before I end this video off, guys. So let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know if you agree with some of these players I've chosen on my 5 players. What players would you have the Raptors choosing on that 8th, 9th spot? Let me know in the comment section below, guys. So thank you if you're still watching this video. Thank you so much for watching this video. Until next time.